Hi there, good
Hello.
morning. Warm
Good
welcome to this
morning.
session, which is all about getting ready for an incredible relationship. And we're really excited. We've got lots of stuff to share with you over the next hour that will help you if you're at that point of looking to set your relationship up for success. And well, quick intro first of all. So I'm Matt. This is the wonderful, incredible, beautiful Rebecca. We work a lot together with couples, as well as with individuals as well around relationships, people looking to improve their relationships. Just to give you some idea as intro, Rebecca will give her intro in a moment, but just so you can see, this is where we hang out online. You can see our website, Aligned with Love, where you can see information about the different services that we offer. So that you can do our scorecard on here as well, test your relationship with some questions. You've got some different media stuff on there. You've also got a link to the podcast, where you've got lots of incredible interviews and information, some done by myself, some by Rebecca. So lots of great stuff there to get your teeth into, just to give you an idea. So we're all about relationships and helping all our clients to have relationships that really work for them.
And if you have already an amazing relationship, and this is why maybe you are just about to get married, you can make sure that you keep your partner. Because, one thing is to attract your partner. Amazing. But how about keeping your partner? People don't know about the statistics that are happening out day after day after day. It feels really good when we meet that person. We are infatuated. We meet that person. We are together for a while, and then we start settling. But then this is when we are settled, we start realizing how we are triggering each other. And it's all good. You just need to know how to go about when you trigger each other. And also you can prevent it as well if you do this work beforehand. But it doesn't matter. Even if this is happening already, we can do some things to palliate that, because the triggers can feel really bad. What are the triggers? The triggers are when when our autopilots, subconscious autopilots go off, and then we start fighting, arguing, or maybe withdrawing. A partner wants to resolve the arguments right now. The other one wants to do it later. Some people are very sensitive. Some people are cold and detached, and there's different ways in which we can trigger each other. And we want to know those things. And also there's other things like attraction, the polarity. At the beginning, there's a lot of polarity, attraction, from each other. There's the presence of polar opposite forces. So like the magnets, they attract to each other. But what happens after a while is that the magnets are worn off. Is that a word in English?
Yeah, the magnets get depolarized, demagnetized, really. That's right, it can happen.
And then there's no more passion, spark. The spark is gone. You don't want to get to that point.
Exactly. And also sometimes sometimes we can have challenges and not actually know that we've got the challenge until it's a bit too late. How, let's say, one of the analogies that we use is around your building. Let's say you had a problem in the foundations of your house. Is it possible that you could live in the house for quite a while and not really see any obvious sign of that problem? You could just be living with what we call a latent problem. But then at some point in the future, it comes out somehow. You have a problem, something falls down, or you have a crack. And, could it be that crack appears at a really bad time, when you really needed the house to be solid, and then all of a sudden you realize it's not solid anymore.
Or it wasn't solid, but you missed it.
Exactly, because you don't see it. You don't see the underlying problem. What you see is the symptom of the problem. Or it's a bit like another analogy, if you will, is imagine if you're playing a sport, playing tennis, and you could play for a while, but if you have a problem in your technique, could it be that eventually that develops into an injury or a problem, or a problem with your game? It's sort of, it can accumulate over time. So again, great that you're here looking to get the relationship into the most solid place before you get too far into the relationship.
Exactly.
So yeah, that's a bit about what we're going to be covering today. Just in terms of housekeeping, we're live on Facebook and also obviously on Zoom. So some people are here with us on Zoom, some people watching on Facebook. So
YouTube.
So YouTube, yeah. So just to let us know, you can comment on either one, and we'll pick up your questions. So you should have the chat box if you're on Zoom, or otherwise you've got the comments if you're on YouTube. And yeah, we'd really love to get any feedback, questions as we go through. That's really going to help us to explain everything. So just to say, we really encourage that. Okay, great. So we've got a few different areas to cover this morning. One of the first things we want to do, though, is help you to get an understanding of where you're starting from. You know, just so you can understand maybe where your areas of strength are versus the areas that are maybe not working as well as you'd like them to work. So we'd like to do an exercise with you. You're going to need a piece of paper here, and this is how it's going to work. So we're going to start with a piece of paper like this, and this is how it's going to look. So our starting point here is that we have a circle. And the first thing we need to do, we're going to be looking at 8 different areas of the relationship here. So what the first thing we're going to do is split the circle into 8, like so. So you need something that looks something like that. Doesn't need to look quite as neat as that, but even just on a piece of paper is fine. And what we're going to be doing here is looking at 8 different aspects of the relationship to give you an idea, just so you can start to understand where you currently are and what are the areas that could become bigger problems as you go through. So these are the areas that we'd like to cover. So we're going to go around and talk about them. We're going to do a demonstration here just to show you what it needs to look like. All of the scoring is on a scale of 0 to 10. 0 to 10. So 0 is obviously a low score. That's when things are not working. And a high score would be a 10. That's when things are working at a really high level. So this is the first thing we'd like to have a look at. So what are these 8 dimensions or 8 areas of the relationship that we'd like you to think about this morning? So the first one is what we call common values. By the way, these are all areas that we look at in much more detail during our program, you know, so where people want to really go into this in, thank you, where people want to go into this in much more detail, then you've got an opportunity to do that with us. But for today, we're going to do a fairly quick run through these different areas. So what do we mean by common values?
The common values are the things that you have in common together. Do you like to travel together? Do you one prefer the mountains? The other one prefers to live in the sea. You know, one of you wants to have a lovely dog. The other one doesn't want to have the lovely dog. So how many things do you have in common together in general, just in general? And don't overthink, because it needs to be what first comes to your mind. That's the answer that you're looking for. It's a feeling, it's not a thought.
So what you're going to end up with is a score from 0 to 10. So in this case, I put 5, and you put the line across at the corresponding point in the segment. So can you see how a 5 is like a middle score? So the line is going to be roughly in the middle of that segment, because that means that, you know, we have somewhat common values, but there's maybe some quite big differences as well. So that'll be a medium score. So what about you? Well, how closely aligned are your values compared to your partner? That's the first area we'd like to think about. So we'll just give you a minute to have a think about that and come up with a score, and then we're going to move on to the next part. Okay, so the next one is what we call emotional intimacy. So emotional intimacy. So what is your score, again, on a scale of 0 to 10 for emotional intimacy? So again, what do we mean by that?
Yeah, so do you feel like you are best friends, you and your partner, or do you feel like you are walking on eggshells? you cannot be yourself. You may be criticized. You never know how your partner is gonna get shouting, yelling at you, criticizing you. You forgot one little thing from the supermarket and now she's making a big thing. Or maybe you don't feel heard, understood by your partner. So in that case, how is your emotional intimacy? How emotionally connected you are? Or are you quite apart?
Yeah, so a low score would be that we feel quite disconnected emotionally. We can't be open, we can't share the things that are on our minds, we can't express our emotions because it doesn't feel good to do so for whatever reason. That would be a low score. Whereas a high score is, yeah, we can be very emotional together, we share together, we're very emotionally connected, we have a lot of intimacy emotionally. So that would be a high score. So again, just take a moment, think about what your score is, and then we'll move on to the next element.
That's right. Some people have a lot of sex, but they are not able to look at each other's eyes. The next one is communication and conflict resolution. So did you have the feeling that when you argue, if you argue, things get brushed under the carpet, or perhaps they get resolved? Are you arguing always about the same thing? How often do you argue? Does your partner bring stuff from the past? Do you have the feeling that you're always arguing about the same thing again and again and again? One of you wants to resolve the conflicts now, but then the other one wants to talk about it later, or withdraws, or becomes moody, or shouts, or maybe it is you. So how is your communication on a scale from 0 to 10, where 0 is there's no communication basically, and the other one is amazing, we don't have that problem?
Yeah, so a high score would be, we resolve things great, we don't get stuck, the conflict doesn't become destructive in any way, we just move on and deal with it in a positive way. That would be a high score.
Yeah. Yes,
So,
some people have not spoken to each other for, what was the maximum that we've seen, Matt?
I don't know, a while. I mean,
2 years. Yeah, 2 years.
Having a proper conversation at least.
Yeah. Okay. The next one.
Next one, personality fit.
Personality fit. Some people have different personalities, and that can bring a lot of challenges. Some other people have a big personality gap, but between themselves, but they make it work, because there's respect. So how is your personality fit? Maybe some of you like to go out a lot and is the soul of the party, but the other one is more shy. They want to stay at home, be nice and comfy, safe. And the other one maybe loves following the instructions every time that you go to IKEA to buy a piece of furniture. But maybe the other one, who cares the instructions? Let's just do it anyhow. Let's not follow any process. Let's just do it. Just flow.
Or maybe one of you is much more fast-paced and just wants to do things now and resolve everything right away, and the other one is more, well, no, I need to get the information, I need to get the data. We can't do it now, I need to take my time. So do you have a difference in pace that can cause a challenge as well?
Some people speak very fast, some people speak very slow.
Exactly. So
that can be a big challenge, really. The next one is safety. How safety do you feel with your partner?
How safe?
How safe, yeah. Do you feel like you can sleep with your partner, or maybe not because your partner wants to have sex all the time? Or even when you feel super exhausted, your partner wants to have sex. Does they force you, or push you, or manipulate you, guilt trip you? Or maybe you feel sexually safe, but you don't feel emotionally safe because your partner calls you names. Or perhaps your partner has anger problems, and that causes you to feel intimidated. Maybe your partner is very critical, and so you feel like you're not good enough. Or maybe you don't feel financially safe because he or she has a gambling problem, which we see quite a lot. Or maybe an alcohol problem, and when they come back from drinking, they get aggressive. Or maybe they don't get aggressive, but they're not doing well at work because of the alcohol problem, so you don't feel financially safe, or even in the relationship. Maybe you don't have any safety or certainty in your relationship with your partner because maybe your partner has cheated to you in the past, or has recently done it, or maybe they've never done it, but you don't trust them for some reason. How are you regarding safety? How are you doing? Not growing together. Growing together is that sense that you're moving on together in the same direction. You're not just moving apart. And this could involve all these different areas, because everything is connected.
So do you feel like you're on the same page, heading in the same direction, building the same thing together, or at least aligned in where you're going? Or is it just that each of you is doing your thing, or maybe you don't really feel that connected in terms of what your partner's doing? It's like they're doing their thing, you're doing your thing, and there's not much of a coming together. That could be a low score here. So what about you for growing together? How effectively would you say you're growing together with your partner?
It looks like a Christmas tree.
It does a little bit, yeah. You think about Christmas already? So it's only May. There you go.
Okay, and the next one
is excitement and fun.
Excitement and fun. How much excitement do you have in your relationship? How much passion do you have? Fun. Do you do things together? Or does the relationship feel flat and dead and boring? Does your partner make any jokes, smiles, and laughs? They like to laugh. How about you? Or is it all serious and boring? And perhaps one of you likes to have a lot of fun and excitement, but the other one is just doing their head, logic, make these things happen, focus, be serious, problem solver. But how about fun, excitement, passion, doing things together, laughing?
That's right.
Not necessarily having to do anything, but just enjoying the time, the moment, the flowing, it's being spontaneous.
That's right. And there's nothing right or wrong with any of this. It's just a question of perspective and identifying where the issues are for you.
Exactly.
Because the challenges that you see, if you do see challenges, they could also be strength in another way. This is something we look at, further on. So it's just understanding for you, where do you think you currently are? How do you see the relationship? How well does it fulfill your requirements or desire for excitement and fun? Again, on a scale of 0 to 10. Great. Lots of words. Yeah, so the next area is sexual attraction. So, how attracted do you feel to your partner? So this is something that isn't such a big deal in most relationships, but in an intimate relationship, it's part of the picture for many of our clients, at least. And so again, a high score would be, I feel very attracted to my partner. And a low score would be not so much, or maybe we feel more like brother and sister. Or maybe I feel like my partner's more like a child and I'm looking after a child.
That's right.
Different ways that this can be
exactly.
effective when it's not working. So how about for you? What score would you give yourselves on this area? Sexual attraction. How sexually attracted do you feel? And, another way of thinking about this is, if it happens that you haven't been intimate together for a while, that's probably pointing towards a low score. We did this with one couple and they initially gave themselves a very high score, but then later in the conversation, it turned out they hadn't been intimate for months and months.
Exactly.
So, it doesn't always correlate, but there's a good chance that if there is attraction, that will come out in behavior. So it's not just something we think or feel, it will come out in action as well. So have a think for yourselves, how well is that part of the relationship working? Any questions so far? Any questions on this exercise, on any of the categories? So again, we're looking for scores in all these areas. I'll do my colouring in. Okay. You do your colouring in, don't you, as well? Got your book. Rebecca's got a colouring in book, so she's
it's really
she's
good. Yes, for stress relief.
Yeah.
I got it right here. Look, with the shape of the hand.
Which is a great exercise in being present as well. Imagine, we're going to talk more about that in a moment. Great. So now you've got a picture. You've got a picture of you know, the relationship, how you're currently doing. And this is a really great starting point in terms of understanding the things that really need to work for our marriage or our future relationship to really work at a high level. So that's something we just wanted to share with you. We do that with our clients as well, to help them really understand where the gaps are at the moment for them. So yeah, that was a great starting point.
Because sometimes, you know, you feel that something is not right, but you don't really know why, what is going on. So doing this kind of assessments is really great, because you can see which one of the areas of your life are going amazing, which ones are okay, and which ones are not okay at all. And you didn't think of that. So chunking things down in this way, it's amazing. I just wonder what areas of your life, of your wheel of love, are going amazingly, and which ones are not really doing well, or maybe you are doing average, okay, you know, because it's not the same to survive, which many people are surviving. It's not the same as thriving, because do you want to survive in this life, in your relationship, or do you want to thrive? It's a choice, but it needs to be a conscious choice. And most of the time, it's an unconscious choice. We're just surviving, and we don't even realize that actually we have options. We have always a choice, and we can choose to do better, to be better. But we need to choose consciously. But sometimes we are like sleeping workers, and we just going along with life. We're not choosing our choices because we don't even know that we have choices. And that happens in relationships as well. Like when a woman is very certain that she wants to have a child or a family, and the man, normally, he didn't even consider that. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't, you know, but what if they didn't consider that? Well, if he doesn't choose, someone is gonna choose. Before you know, you have a baby, you have a family, you have a whole array of children, and you know you're not ready. You wanted to set up the business first, improve, growing at work professionally, save some money, buy a house, you know, reduce the mortgage, and you wanted to do things in a way, following a process to make it all feel good and smooth. And all of a sudden, you're going to have to deal with all these things at the same time. And before you know, between the resentment against maybe your partner, but maybe it's actually against yourself for not having had a clarity of where you were going and choosing the path, you know, and set it, define it. And between those resentments and the practicalities and the stress of the day-to-day life, like, you know, like now taking your children to school, to the nursery, they get sick, your boss is complaining, you need you have more clients, more work to do. Now the house, your wife is complaining about the house, you don't help me, support me in the house, you don't support me with the children, the babies are crying all night and you don't get up with me, you just want to be sitting in the sofa with your beer and and you know, and so what, now what? And you need to chill as well, because you're working all day, and before you know, there's no spark, there's no attraction anymore. Who wants to be around with someone who is complaining all the time, criticizing all the time, expecting things from you that you can't simply give because you're so stressed at work and trying to make things work, providing, you know, paying the bills, and your partner is complaining? what the hell? Is this the dream that you wanted? So now we need to course correct it, because it can be fixed if you both want it to be fixed.
Exactly. So this was really the introduction up until now. We just wanted to give you a flavor of where we're heading, how to get a sense of where you are right now. And what we'd like to do now is come on and talk about, really to roll our sleeves up, so to speak, and to talk about our framework and how we actually work and help you get to that point of clarity so that you've got the proper foundations. So, we've got a framework that we've developed, a unique framework which steps you through the key elements. Do you know where that is on the system, the framework? Yeah. So we're just going to share that with you now, just so you understand the journey that we go on. And we're going to dip into those areas this morning, which will give you a great idea, about how things work when you actually come and work on this for real. Just to say that there's a number of areas that we work in, so the framework is a great way just to understand what those are. That's great. Let's share. Okay. You need to maximize it. Needs to be over. Otherwise you won't see it. So we're just going to share this with you right now. So you need to maximize that. The whole picture. There we go. So these are the three elements that we just like to describe with you how this works. And then what we're going to do is dip into each of these elements. We can't obviously go through everything this morning, but this will give you a flavor of what we do. So the first thing, we have the seeds of love. I'm just going to talk through the different elements and then we're going to dive in. So the seeds of love, it's all about getting ourselves into a good emotional place. Normally when things stop working, or maybe they're not working as well as we want, we get into this cycle of going backwards and forwards. I had a great analogy recently where it's a bit like if you're in a boat, if you're rowing in a boat, what happens if you only row one oar, but not the other one? Could it be that you just go around in circles? Yeah, that could be like a relationship where only one of you is rowing and the other one isn't so well, for example. But it can also be like a cycle where we have like retaliation, anger, blame, tit for tat. But what about you? I had a great example of this the other day where the couple had a rota, a cleaning rota in the house. So let's say Rebecca cleans on a Wednesday and I clean on a Saturday. That way we keep it clean. But then it comes to Saturday and the house is a mess. But I'm like, but hang on, this isn't just 2 days worth of mess. You didn't do your cleaning on Wednesday. So of course it's a mess, but I'm not doing all the cleaning now because you didn't do your cleaning on Wednesday.
You know, support me, you're always keeping count.
But I'm here ready to do my cleaning today. You didn't do your cleaning on Wednesday.
But because I didn't do my cleaning on Wednesday because you didn't support me with the children, so I didn't have time. I need to deal with the children.
Oh, there's always an excuse. There's always a reason, isn't there? So
yeah, that's what you say.
So can you see how easily we can get caught in the cycle? This is why the seeds of love is so important, because it's the strategies that help you break that cycle of negativity. Because until you do, frankly, nothing much is going to work. Yeah, no matter what amazing information, you read the best book in the world, you start,
that's right,
doing this or that, or doing an online program about this, but ultimately until you break that cycle of negativity, it's all just going to feed into that cycle. Yeah,
that's right. And once you have these strategies in place and qualities, you develop these qualities that you already have and you may not know, or you may need to dial up a little bit. Once you have that in place, you're gonna feel amazing in any kind of situation, no matter what life throws at you. So this is not just about relationships. What's that?
Sorry, just checking out this on YouTube.
No matter what life throws at you, you are gonna know what to do, how to make yourself feel. So you are not at the mercy of things or life. You know how to master your emotional control, basically your emotional state. And very importantly, you are gonna know how you are going to realize that people around you perceive you in a positive way. They like to be with you around always, because some people are not very pleasant to be around with. Around with, does that make sense?
People to be around.
So not only we are gonna feel better with everyone, even challenging people that we may not like as much, but we people are also going to feel amazing with us, because we're not inspiring and perspiring, if that makes sense, any negativity from that cycle of negativity that we can fall into. And we feel trapped, we get trapped, and then we don't know how to break it. But we can with this.
Exactly.
With the seeds of love.
And sometimes we can get quite conditional. It's like, well, I'm only going to try a little bit, but if I don't see effort from her, forget it. I'm done. Yeah. So can you see how it almost becomes a deal, but then we're backwards and forwards, because could it be that she's then looking at me saying, well, but you're not even really trying, you're still blaming me.
Exactly.
Like, yeah, but I'm only blaming you because you're not making any effort. And can you see we're going around in circles again? That's why this is so critical. So that's the first part, the seeds of love.
So aligned is the seeds of love. Every single letter of the word aligned is one of those seeds. That's why we call this aligned with love, because you need to be aligned with love and aligned with yourself, which is our next step of the process of our system. You need to be aligned with love and aligned with yourself, because if you're not aligned with love, you are going to be aligned with fear, basically. And that means that you are a match for another partner who is aligned with fear. And if you are not aligned with yourself, first of all, you're not going to be able to be aligned with your partner at all. You are going to be misaligned with your partner, which in the first place is because you're not aligned with love, you are aligned with fear.
Exactly. So what do we cover? What do we actually look at during this part, aligned with yourself? What's that all about? Why would I need to be aligned with myself? Hang on, we're working on the relationship here. So what have I got to do with it? Actually, it's very difficult. If we're not in a good place, it's extremely difficult to have a great relationship. Could it be that my, anxiety or my patterns, my being triggered, or my not meeting my needs in some way? Is it possible that my partner could become aware of that and be affected by my misalignment, my personal unhappiness or dissatisfaction? So that's why this is so critical to work on. So we're going to, again, dip into one element there. We're not going to cover the whole thing this morning, but we are going to give you just a couple of points or things that you can really get your teeth into from that as well in a moment. So that's aligned with yourself. So we've got ourselves in a great emotional state. That's the first part. We understand our patterns and our triggers and how it affects our partner and the relationship and everyone else. That's the second part. And then we move on to the third part, which is called aligned with your partner.
Yeah, and this is where you discover the dance, the energetic and emotional and also physical. This is at all levels already. Dance with your partner. And not only with your partner, really, because even at work, if you have other people around you, there's also that energetic dance going on of the feminine and the masculine energy. And if you know how to go around that dance, you can have an amazing experience, an amazing day at work, or you could have a nightmare because there are some dynamics going on. And this is pretty obvious in an intimate relationship, because there's clearly opposite forces, polar forces, the feminine force and the masculine force. It's a bit more complicated than that, because we got sex, gender, essence, and there's people, transgenders, gays and lesbians and all these things in between, but yeah, it's a dance between the feminine essence and the masculine essence. And once you understand that, not only you have more sex, more emotional connection as well, but you have a magic relationship.
That's right. And some people like to ignore that part and say, well, do you know what, why can't we just put that to one side and just be really nice together? And that's good, but on its own, it won't get you over the line. This stuff is just unavoidable, because the dynamic is playing out. For as long as we decide to dance with our partner, which is what the relationship is, obviously we may decide that we don't want to dance. do you know what? I don't like dancing. I'm not even going in a dancing club. There's no obligation, right? We don't have to dance. But if you do choose to dance, then you need to think about how the dance is going to work if you want it to look good and feel good. But we also look at things like dialogue and also about the different ways that we connect together as well to feel more connected with our partners. So there's a lot, again, that we cover during that. Again, for today, we're just going to be dipping in. So what should we, so now we've got our overview. This is the overall picture. What I'd like to do is to dive into one or two areas, just to give you a flavor of what we're actually looking at here. So
if you guys are wondering what am I drinking, what the hell is this? It's water, lime, and cinnamon powder.
Otherwise, I'll just so coming back to where we were. So as Rebecca mentioned, there are a number of different elements under the seeds of love. And we're not going to cover everything today because we'll be here for a while, and obviously there's a lot. Thank you. And so as Rebecca said, there are 7 here, so we're not going to go through these in detail, but as Rebecca said, it spells out the word align. So we have
A for awareness.
This is the one we're actually going to talk about today. We're going to talk about why awareness is so critical. You know, if you want to get the foundations in your relationship, how it's very, very difficult to do that without improving or understanding how aware or conscious or present we're being. So this is one of the areas. Then we're not going to go through this. I'm just going to put the initials on here, just so you know kind of this is how it works, but we're not going to be covering these today, but we are, for when you join the program, we're going to obviously be going through these in detail. So we have 6 other areas, but for today, I'm just going to focus on awareness. So just to remind you, this is all about breaking the cycle, about getting ourselves into the most positive place. So how could we get stuck? How can we get into that place of going around in circles? Now, this is an area where it's been much researched in recent years around the power of mindfulness and meditation. Now, we can share lots of information around these resources. What happens when we become more aware, more present, is that we're able to catch ourselves before we get triggered. Yeah, so the key thing here is about, we could say, having a gap between the stimulus,
which can be external or internal.
That's a great point.
And that's the trigger that we were talking about, the autopilot that goes off.
That's right. And our response, because let's say if my partner does something that triggers me, let's say she says something that annoys me or irritates me.
Man, you are too serious.
What do you mean I'm too serious? That's how rare. How can you say that? I'm just getting my job done. I'm at work here. What? Can you see if I get angry at that point? Can you see how it could make the situation worse than it already was? So have you ever been in a situation where you've, as we say, seen red and you've lost it and you've got angry and started shouting or got fuming or furious with the situation? And the thing is that once you get into that state, what is the chance really of us having a positive outcome to the conversation? Yeah, as soon as we get triggered into that anger response or rage or putting the barriers up, I'm not here anymore, then is it really possible for us to have a great resolution to our situation? It's not, is it? In fact, the research shows that the more often we or one of us gets triggered into that state of what we call fight or flight, the less likely our relationship is going to be to succeed.
That's right. Our stress response kicks in, and that's it. We're down. We're down. We don't talk to each other for days. We don't want to play together anymore. We don't communicate. We start punishing each other, and things go bad. Thank you.
Bless you.
You never say thank you every time I sneeze.
I want to say thank you. Thank you for the germs. Thank you for that. So this is about a way that we manage our fear response. And the research shows that when subjects have gone through a process of becoming more mindful, this part of our brain called the amygdala, which is like manages our fear response, actually gets smaller over time. So this is why people that learn to meditate or learn mindfulness through the practices that we share, you actually literally manage those reactions in a different way. You have physiological changes. It's quite incredible that this has been shown through research. So this is why it's so important that we become aware of ourselves and aware of how we react in different situations. I want to give one more example of why awareness might be a really good thing to have in our relationship. Because what we have is our stories. Yeah, so normally as we're growing up, we develop stories about how relationships are. Yeah, it might be, well, I should never trust anyone because I'll be let down, just like my dad was let down. Or maybe it's that, relationships are all about having fun. It's all about never commit, because if you commit, you're going to get bogged down and bad stuff is going to happen. So what we have is a number of what we call stories about what relationships are. What we need to do is to be able to catch ourselves at the point when we're running one of those stories. Yeah, so if I'm running a story that says, oh, that's right, my partner, she's never reliable. That's right, I can never rely on her. She's flaky. She never does what she says. I need to be able to catch myself at the point that I'm telling myself that story.
That's right.
And just be able to catch myself and stop me from running that pattern.
That's right. Because can you control your partner? Can you control what she does? If she's flaky, if she's not flaky, if she follows up, if she doesn't follow through, can you control that? What else could you control?
So, for people that want to get a great foundation for the relationship, developing this ability to be able to catch ourselves, to be aware of our own thought process. Oh yeah, I'm feeling really angry now. This situation really isn't working for me. What's going on here? And being able to really contain that reaction and then react in a more conscious and present way. This is a really great resource for you as you get in your relationship together. And this is what we cover again in our program, along with a number of different areas that are all intended to break that cycle of negativity, that tit for tat, or where we're just reacting in an unconscious way, which causes a bigger problem for us.
That's right.
No. Excellent. So what we're going to do, we're going to work on the same sheet. So we're going to use down here and then also over here. And then, so let's move on then to the second part of our process, which is what we call align with yourself. So just to recap what this is all about. So align with yourself is all about recognizing how we get triggered in different ways and how it then affects our partner, and how it affects the relationship. And I just want to dive into one very specific area, which is often, a big challenge, for the people that we work with. What we have is a scale from 0 to 10 here, where we have this midpoint. Oops. And this is in the quality of what we call fight. So what we have when we have too much of this quality, so a 10 is where we're towards the aggressive. So this is where we've got like too much of this quality of fight, where it almost comes out in a dysfunctional way. Then in the midpoint, we've got assertive. So this is where we've got just the right amount of this quality of fight. And then anything in this lower zone is where we haven't got enough of this quality, which is what we call passive. So I'd like you to just think about this for a moment, like where you sit on this axis and also where your partner sits. Yeah, so I have a think, again, if this is a scale from 0 to 10, where do we actually sit on here? So let's say, if I'm being really honest with myself, there are times when I don't stand up for myself. You know, I'm too much towards the passive. You know, I let things happen. I don't have boundaries. I don't stand up for myself. I allow my partner to act in ways that
to yell at him.
Yeah, without standing up. I don't have a boundary. I don't say, no, I don't agree with that. I'm not happy with that situation, but I just go along with it. That's what we call passive.
That's right.
Or maybe you or maybe your partner is more towards the other end, where we're more towards the aggressive, the fight zone. This is where we can create problems that maybe we didn't really need to create. Yeah, so, you know, let's say, you know, some people, you could just drop them in a situation and you know there's going to be trouble. There's something's going to happen. Maybe you don't know exactly what's going to happen, but something's going to happen and it's going to create an issue.
And this is why some partners don't like to go with their partners to open places with other people, to social gatherings or family gatherings, because they know that there is going to be trouble. They know that they can be a bit antisocial, a bit fighty, and anything can trigger them. And so you feel very embarrassed or uncomfortable and tensed under pressure, you know, walking on eggshells, like trying that everyone is going to be happy, you know, but not really. You know that there's something's going to happen, because wherever you go with your partner, there's trouble. And that can definitely happen. And so that can definitely hinder your social life, where you don't want to bring anyone to the house because your partner is gonna end up giving trouble, or maybe going anywhere with your partner, and that can take you apart from each other because you don't do any more things together. And why? Because of this stress response that your partner has.
Exactly.
And it's how you also are triggered by that.
Exactly. I was going to say that there's a really important dynamic at work here, because normally, like, I may be naturally quite assertive, but let's say if I see my partner as being quite angry and fiery and, you know, ready to bite my head off at any point, then could it be that I become more passive in order to accommodate that? Because I don't want to cause a problem. I certainly don't want to cause a scene in front of the kids. So we'll just go along with things. We'll just keep things peaceful, you know. So we end up then going along with things that we otherwise probably wouldn't do, because we perceive that in our partners. It's a great example of how this can play out. Equally, what could happen if, let's say, my partner is naturally quite assertive, but then she sees me as being very passive? How could she then adapt? How could she then react in order to compensate for that? So can you see there's a really important dynamic to understand there? This is one of the areas that we look at. So there are 4 different areas. This is just one of them. So we've got fight, flight, freeze, and fawn. So we, with our program, we unpack all this and really help you to understand how those dynamics are, what the natural consequences are likely to be, and then, you know, you can decide how you want to take things forward from there. Yeah, we can just make some adjustments. Yeah, sometimes some quite small adjustments, or sometimes some quite big adjustments in order to make that really work. So again, how is that affecting your relationship? Okay, great. So the next thing I want to talk over here about this, so this is going to be our section on aligned with your. And what we look at over here, one of the areas that we look at is around dialogue. dialogue. And this is a process that we run through, which helps you to have those important conversations in a way that means you really feel heard by the other person. Yeah. Because what tends to happen is I'll raise something. Oh, do you know what? I've got a problem. I wanted to let you know, I didn't really like the way that the dynamic was with your family when we were here. They were here the other day. I felt really uncomfortable.
So what you're talking about my mother? Are you serious? I mean, how can you talk about my mother? How about your mother?
Yeah, I mean, I know my mum, it can be a handful as well, but I mean, I wasn't really talking about that today, although yeah, can you see how we can quite easily get distracted from the real point of the conversation? So what I'd like to do is share a concept.
Plus triggered by the other thing that we mentioned before.
Exactly, all these things link together, as you'll find out here. But what happens is with the dialogue is that what we start off with is what we call mirroring. So what mirroring means is that we've got some key questions that we need to ask there. So we need to, rather than changing the subject or deflecting or distracting, is that we need to repeat back what we heard. So again, this is just going to be a snapshot of part of this process, but what we need to do is then back. The key questions are then, is that right? And also, we like to ask, is there anything else? So let's just do a quick example. So again, this is only part of the whole process, but it gives you something to start working on in terms of really getting the communication working better. So this is what it might look like. So, hey, sweetheart, I'm a bit worried about, your parents are coming next week, and it's a bit on my mind. I'm a bit worried about how things are going to go.
Okay, so what I'm hearing is that you're worried about my parents coming over next week, and you don't really know how that's gonna go.
Exactly.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell me about this?
Yeah, well, it's mainly about when we have a kind of disagreement, and I find it quite uncomfortable with your mum because I get this feeling that you're like siding with her, and that it makes it really hard for me then to be there.
Okay, so actually, what I'm hearing is that you don't really like when I get sided with my mom. That's how you feel. You think that we are against you or something. Is this right?
That's right, yeah.
Anything else you want to tell me about this?
Well, only that when that happens, it then makes me feel more disconnected from you, like it affects our relationship.
I see. So every time that this happens, you feel disconnected from me. Oh, is this right?
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to tell me about this?
Well, only that, I really love your mum a lot, and I love it when she comes, but there's just this dynamic that I'd love it if we could work on, and then I think the whole thing can work really well.
So what I'm hearing is that you actually don't love your mom.
No, you're
my mom.
I do.
I'm joking. You don't love your mom. My mom. Okay, so what I'm hearing is that, yeah, you love my mom, but you feel disconnected from me. Every time she comes in, you feel that I'm siding up with her.
Exactly.
Is there anything else you want to tell me about this?
No, that's it. You've got it. So that's the end of the first part of this process. So even that on its own is such a game changer. So we go through this process. There are quite a few more steps here that we go through later. But even just to practice this is going to really help you get that foundation that you're looking for. So because what happens is that, maybe we would have started solving the wrong problem, or we would have got distracted into something else, or lots of different ways this could have broken down, you see. But by doing this process, it gives us a chance to really feel heard by the other person. So that was really, that's really, really key to start with. So what I wanted to do as well is just remind you of the process that we have, how it works. So, if this is something that you're keen to work on, keen to address, then we have this process that we run through where we initially connect with you, have a conversation, understand what's happening, how you're looking to improve the relationship, get the foundations right. If it's a good fit after that, we then have a one-to-one with each of you, where it's in order to really start giving you some things to start working on immediately. And then we get together and we do this 10-hour process over 3 days, 2 to 3 days. And what it enables you then to do is to really get to the bottom of things. And you can then see, how we can support you to understand how the foundations of the relationship may not be quite what you want them to be. And and then we move into the implementation. So it's not just this first stage. We also support you over 6 months as you're putting things into practice with 3 sessions every month. So it's a 6-month process. It's not like some counseling where it's like never ending, or you don't quite know how it's going to wrap up. We have a beginning, a middle, and an end, and that's really how it works over the 6 months. So if this is something that you'd like to explore, get in touch. We'd love to have a conversation and just see how this could be a fit for you in terms of getting the relationship to where you want it to be.
Welcome, guys. Thank you for coming here today, for being so committed to your intimate relationship, to your partner, to having an amazing life, an amazing intimate relationship, to thrive, not to just survive. Well done, guys, because not everyone does that. And this is why many people are getting divorced year after year, day after day, to be honest. I mean,
that's
you just need to go and see the statistics. So you are not going to be one of those. So good to you. Otherwise, good luck to you.
Exactly. You've put yourself in exactly the right place by watching this. Thanks for spending the time with us today. And reach out. And if we can be of any support to help you really get the relationship to work and not just to leave it to chance and hope for the best.
Exactly.